So we are going to begin recording. Today's session is on annotating. So hopefully I am sharing my screen with you. Let me see if we can X out. So we are going to walk through annotating. I'm going to move the box out of the way so you can see the article. This is the article we're going to annotate together. And it's kind of a review, even though we have the annotating video for Oldest Creature in the video recordings on Moodle. We're going to record our class session for annotating while I walk through it. I'm not going to do the entire article, but we're going to do a few paragraphs, go through the checklist, kind of give everybody a review one more time. Be sure to ask questions as we go along. So based on our checklist, we're using our checklist to go through the annotating. What is my first step? I'm going to dim the lights a little bit so you can see the overhead a little better. What's our first step in the annotating checklist? What am I going to start with?
Heading into a question.
Yeah, exactly. Heading into the questions. So we have a title, Women in History, and then we have a heading that says 3 Radical Women. So let's just turn it into a question or two. And remember, we're writing right on the text. So give me a shout out. What's a question? Yeah, I would say, okay, so those are both good questions. Who are the radical women? And the second question was about history. So maybe when were they in history? So in other words, what time frame, what period, where, maybe even, okay? To keep the meeting running, please assign a host before you click leave meeting. Well, I don't want to end my meeting. We want to cancel. Sorry, I don't know why that's popping up on us. Hopefully we can continue. I must have hit a button accidentally. Okay, we're going to continue on. So we've written our questions right next to the heading. Perfect. Okay. So what's our next step in the annotating checklist? Remember, we're going paragraph by paragraph. So for the first paragraph, what do I have to do? Remind me what topic is. It says underline the topic. How did we define topic? What does it mean? What am I underlining? Well, but before we got to read it first, but I want to know what I'm looking for in the topic. Topic means what? Yeah, who or what that paragraph is about, right? So I'm going to read the paragraph, and then you're going to tell me who or what is the topic. Amelia Bloomer, 1818 to 1894, published the first newspaper issued expressly for women. She called it The Lily. Her fame, however, rests chiefly in dress reform. For 6 or 8 years, she wore an outfit composed of knee-length skirt over full pants gathered at the ankle, which were soon known everywhere as bloomers. Wherever she went, this style created great excitement and brought her enormous audiences, including hecklers. She was trying to make the serious point that women's fashions, often designed by men to suit their own tastes, were too restrictive, often to the detriment of the health of those who wore them. Still, some of her contemporaries thought she did the feminist movement as much harm as good. So, who or what do you think this whole thing is about? Say again? Yeah, so remember, it's not a full sentence. It's a word or a phrase. So what would I underline? I would agree. So let's underline Amelia Bloomer, okay? So now we have our topic. We underline our topic. What's our next step in the annotating checklist? So keywords are like words you don't know, vocabulary, words that you need to know the meaning of, but you don't. And then keywords are amounts. So let's start with keywords. Were there any words you didn't know the meaning of in there that you want to circle, that you think it's important to know what they mean? Maybe, yeah, if you don't know what a heckler is, absolutely.
Never heard that one before.
Yeah, and so absolutely, we want to circle. If you've never heard of that word, absolutely, because it's probably important we understand what that is to get the meaning of the paragraph. Any other words that we want to circle?
Detriment.
Detriment, I would agree. Okay, I got to find it.
And I never heard of it either.
Yep.
Those two are like,
Yeah, those are good. Excellent. Any other ones? So let's just, before we move on, let's talk about hecklers and detriment. Anybody want to give a shot what a heckler is? In modern day times, you'll get hecklers in crowds. A lot of times comedians have to deal with hecklers. So based on that context, can you give an idea of what a heckler is? Yeah, it's more than just not laughing. It's someone who's kind of taunting or interrupting, making fun of. So for example, if you're standing there giving a speech and you have a heckler, they're probably shouting out comments to distract or pull away from what you're saying. Does that make sense? Sometimes you see it at political rallies. Sometimes you'll see it, for example, the most common one is quite often in stand-up, in comedy, they'll have hecklers in the audience. Okay, detriment is another one. Detriment of the health, which means to the decline or ill effects. If it's detrimental, it means negative. So detrimental to your health means it's affecting your health negatively or in a bad way. Make sense? Okay. Were there any cue words? In other words, words that showed amounts? No? Okay, so what's our next step in annotating? Oh, there was one? Okay, great. Let's circle it. Thank you. All right, let's go to our next step in annotating. What's the next step after key or cue words on the checklist? Okay, so were there any listed items? Do they list anything in this particular passage, in this paragraph? No, go for it. What is it?
All days were too restricted, often temporary.
So I don't know that they're listing, they're just saying they were restrictive and harmful to the health. I don't really see that they list a bunch of things in there. So again, with your checklist, if they don't list things, you don't have to do it. So go to the next one. What's after list? Are there any examples? Do they give an example? Do they literally say, for example, or do they give an example of something? Nope, not in this one. So, okay, so what's our next step on the checklist? Yep. So now we're going to pull out. Now, again, you can turn it into a question. I personally like to pull out the topic, but either way is appropriate. So what am I going to write in the margin? Remember, it doesn't matter if you go left or right. What's our topic? Yeah, excellent. So I'm going to put her over on the left. So now, what do we need to know about Amelia Bloomer? From that passage, from that paragraph, what are some notes I would want to take that I might need to understand or need to know? Yeah, I would agree. So, published newspaper. Anything else I need to know? Yeah, so she was trying to make a point about fashion. What was it? What was that point about fashion?
Often designed by men to suit their own taste or too constrictive.
Yeah. So women's fashion was restrictive, which means, it's hard for them to move, right? Anything else we need to know from there? Think it's important that we know when she lived? You think the time frame is important? Probably. So let's put that 1818 to 1894. So did you make a connection? What did it says she made a point about fashion. How did she make the point about fashion? Did you pick that up? How was she making a point about fashion? What was she doing? Yeah. Yeah, and what did they call him? She was wearing what? Yeah. So that's probably where the name bloomers came from hers. She wore these pants called bloomers underneath the skirts. Okay, good. So let's try the next one. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we done with the checklist on that? That was the last step, correct? So now we go through the checklist again. We're going to go through that same checklist, but now we're going to do it with a new paragraph, right? So I'm going to read the paragraph and we're going to go through that checklist again. Very few feminists hope to destroy marriages as such. Most of them had husbands and lived conventional, if hectic, lives. And many of the husbands supported their cause. Yet the feminists did challenge certain marital customs. When Lucy Stone married Henry Blackwell, she insisted on being called Mrs. Stone, a defiant gesture that brought her a lifetime of ridicule. Both she and her husband signed a marriage contract vowing to recognize the wife as an independent, rational being. They agreed to break any law which brought the husband an injurious and unnatural superiority. But few of the radical feminists indulged in free love or joined communal marriage experiments. The movement was intended mainly to help women gain control over their own property and earnings and gain better legal guardianship over their children. Voting also interested them, but women's suffrage did not become a central issue until later in the century. Here's my question. Who or what is that passage about? I would agree. I think it is about feminists. One key feminist they do talk about is Lucy Stone, but it's really talking about what the feminists wanted. So I think that's very good. It is. It's about feminists. What's our next step after we've identified the topic? Next. What's next on my checklist? Circle keywords or cue words, right? So let's do keywords first. Keywords are words that you don't know the meaning of, but you think you should to understand the passage. So things like vocabulary. Were there any words in there that you did not understand or did not know? No? Okay, sometimes there's not. If you know all the words, then that's totally fine. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that might be, for some, it might be a word that you didn't know. Good. Any other ones? Okay, so how about amounts? Are there cue words amounts? No? Okay, so remember, sometimes they're not in every passage. So if it's not there, you just skip over it. What's the next thing on our checklist? Sorry? What is it? What's the next thing on our checklist? Do they give any examples?
Like trying to get better legal guardianship of the children.
Actually, I think that's going to be more in the listing because they talk about they didn't believe in free love or joint communal marriage. They intended, so the listing is they intended to help women gain control over property, earnings, gain better legalship, and voting. They're listing what the feminists wanted to do, right? But there is an example in there with Lucy Stone. Don't they give an example of her marriage? Right? They signed a contract. So they give an example of it for sure. And then I think the next thing on our checklist is the list, right? So that's what she was pointing out. They list what the feminists wanted, which was the movement was intended to help women gain control over their property and earnings, gain better legal guardianship over their children, and then voting did interest them, but it didn't come about till later on. So it is something of interest to the feminists. So we have our list. What's next on our checklist? Next on our checklist. After we listed items. What is it? Pull out, yeah. So this is where you pull out the topic or turn it into a question, and then what do you need to know about it? So we said this one was about feminists, right? So based on that passage, that paragraph, what do I need to know about them? Well, they gave me one key one, didn't they? Who was their example? Lucy Stone. She was one. What else do I need to know about feminists? What was the goal of the feminists? What did they want to do? Help women what? Yep, help women gain control over property and what? Earnings, their money, right? And they also wanted to help women get what? Better guardianship over their children. Makes sense so far? Okay, I'm going to stop recording at this point. We've gone through 2 passages. What I'm going to want you to do is I want you to do the next paragraph, and I'm going to come around and double check and see what you have. So let me stop recording.